How did ancient people unravel many mysteries of the celestial bodies? How did they store energy like our batteries? Or how did they locate their directions when they had no radar systems back then? If similar questions come to your mind, then you are not alone. Our ancestors had very limited resources back then, and yet they made such ingenious inventions, even today's scientists are astonished. In this video, we shall talk about the 6 ancient inventions that will blow your mind. Before we begin, make sure to like the video and subscribe to our channel to stay updated with our educational videos. Number 6. The Antikythera mechanism. One of the most amazing devices from ancient Greece, often called the world's first computer, is the Antikythera mechanism. You can say it's like a complex clockwork box built around 100 BC. This fist-sized mechanism used a system of interlocking gears to predict astronomical events. It was like a super fancy combination of a calendar and a computer that could track the sun, moon, and even some planets. Now, you may think, how did it work to extract data from distant space bodies? The Antikythera mechanism had dials and pointers on its exterior. By turning a crank, like winding a music box, you would rotate gears inside that were connected to the dials. Each gear moved at a different speed, mimicking the cycles of the celestial bodies. For example, one gear might rotate slightly every day to represent the Earth's rotation, while another gear might move slower to track the Moon's cycle. So, these gears represented Earth, the Moon, or even some other planets. By lining up the dials in specific ways, people could use the Antikythera mechanism to predict things like eclipses, phases of the Moon, and even the dates of athletic games held every 4 years. Number 5. The Baghdad battery. Have you ever thought about how we manage to store energy and use it whenever we want? The idea is magnificent in itself, but what if I tell you that it is not a modern invention, but was inspired by the ancient Baghdad battery? The Baghdad battery, also known as the Parthian battery, is a mysterious artifact found in Iraq. It's not quite a battery in the modern sense, but it does have some interesting components, like a lower pot with a rolled-up copper cylinder inside. Inserted into the copper cylinder is an iron rod. Some believe this setup could have acted as a simple battery. Its working was somewhat similar to our modern-day cells. As we know, a battery has 2 metal rods that are placed inside a salty or acidic solution that creates current by attracting current charges. In the Baghdad battery, the copper cylinder and iron rod could be the metals, and the acidic residue found inside some jars could be the solution. It is still unclear how this battery was used back then because, as far as we know, electricity was not invented in ancient times. Some theories suggest it was used for electroplating small objects with gold, a process that involves transferring a thin layer of gold using electricity. Number 4. The aqueduct. Imagine a giant water slide, but instead of people whizzing down, it carries fresh water for miles. That's essentially what an aqueduct is. These impressive feats of engineering were built by ancient civilizations, most famously the Romans, to transport water from distant sources to cities and towns. The genius behind aqueducts lies in gravity. They were built with a slight downward slope, like a ramp. Water would flow from a higher elevation, like a mountain spring or lake, and travel through a channel made of stone, brick, or even concrete. This channel could be buried underground or built on tall arches, depending on the terrain. The key is that water naturally flows downhill, so the aqueduct just needed to guide it along the way. These marvels of engineering were a game changer for ancient cities. They provided a reliable source of clean water for drinking, bathing, sanitation, and even irrigation. So next time you turn on the tap, take a moment to appreciate the ancient engineers who made clean water readily available, even without pumps. Number 3. The automatons. Long before robots roamed factories, the ancient world had its own marvels of moving machines, automatons. These weren't just wind-up toys. Some were incredibly complex creations that hinted at the future of technology. The automatons were powered by a variety of mechanisms, depending on their complexity. Simple ones might use springs or levers triggered by weights or strings. More sophisticated models employed water clocks, using the controlled flow of water to power gears and cams. These cams, like irregularly shaped wheels, could push or pull levers, creating a sequence of movements. The purpose of the automaton wasn't necessarily practical. It was like a display decoration for people to watch. We are talking about the time when no one had ever seen anything moving on its own. So it was a big deal back then. Even if they weren't used for work, automatons were a significant step towards our age of automation. Number 2. The mariner's astrolabe. Would you ride a plane after you have been told that the GPS system is not working? The sailors in ancient times did not have GPS system at all, but they had a technology of their own, and the most famous of them all is the mariner's astrolabe. The mariner's astrolabe looked like a flat metal disc with a degree scale marked around the edge. It also had a sighting device called an alidade, which pivoted on the center of the disc. The basic science behind it is geometry. Sailors knew the angle between the horizon and a specific star, like the North Star, would change depending on their location on Earth. Here's how it worked. A sailor would hold the astrolabe upright and use the alidade to sight a star, aligning it with the horizon. The alidade would point to a specific degree on the scale. It wasn't as precise as modern tools, but imagine traveling in the oceans without relying on GPS systems and a whole team sitting in the control room. Instead, traveling with one small device and successfully reaching the destination. Number 1. The Sumerian clock. All ancient innovations have somehow inspired our way into modern technologies. However, there is an ancient innovation that was so good that humans are using the concept to this day. I am talking about the time tracking machine, the Sumerian clock. Back in the day, we didn't have electricity, so this clock did not use hands or dials to tell the time. Time was tracked by the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. That's essentially how the Sumerians kept track of the day and night. The easy science behind it is based on observation. The Sumerians noticed the sun's predictable path across the sky. They divided the daytime into 12 hours, although these wouldn't be exactly the same length as our modern hours because the day's length changes throughout the year. Nighttime was a different story. Since the sun wasn't visible, they likely relied on the appearance and movement of specific stars. Other theories suggest that Sumerians may have used shadow clocks and water clocks too. With this, let's wrap up our today's video. Remember, these are some of the uncountable innovations our ancestors did that laid the foundation for our modern day. So, always appreciate and give credits to those ancient scientists. If you liked the video, hit the like and subscribe button and let us know what you think about the video in the comment section. We shall meet in the next video.